when I finally did see success in Hollywood, it was almost like I was over it at that time. It was almost like it had ran its course. And it wasn't about acting. Acting has and always will be my passion. I will always be that will always be a part of me. But the business of Hollywood, it really, really put a bad taste in my mouth. And the things that I saw on the back end, the parties, the favors, the manipulation, it scarred me, you know? And I remember vividly I had this sit down. My agent called me into his office, my theatrical agent. He called me in, and this was right when I was seeing some pretty good success. I was right in the process of I was either done shooting the Walt or I had just wrapped it, and that was the biggest project I had done at the time in my career. And I'm sitting here raring to go. What's next? What are we going to do next? Hey, boss, like, what do we got? Okay, so I'm thinking he's calling me into the office to have there's a big something big happening. Because funny enough, a couple weeks before this call, I went in to do this read for an unnamed movie, and I didn't know anything about it. They wouldn't tell me anything about it. But I went in. They gave me some specifics about what I was to do. There was no dialogue, there was no lines or anything like that. They put me in this skin tight, like a superhero suit, and they didn't have a cape on it, but it was like a full suit. And they combed my hair, like the part down the side, and they slicked it back, and they had a certain look to my hair. And I just stood there, and I turned side to side, to the back, to the front. I said my name and my statistics and whatnot. They just took measurements. They measured my arm length. They measured my face, my eyes to mouth ratio. They did things that like I remember having done when I was in the modeling industry and doing a lot of gigs like that. So I didn't think anything weird of it. It was definitely because I'm a huge fan of Superman, and I had heard these rumors that Henry Cavill's contract was running out, or he was done with it, or there was some weird stuff going on in the back end with them. So I was pretty pumped up about this whole potential opportunity. Just cut to the chase. I never got a call back, obviously, but things were going in that direction. Like I was going on like what seemed to be bigger auditions, what seemed to be bigger roles and bigger possibilities. So I was getting amped up about this whole thing. A couple weeks after this audition, my theatrical agent calls me in. I sit down. He's got this somber look and attitude about him, and I'm like, "What's up?" And he lays down these scripts because I'm thinking like, what do we got next? What's on the horizon here? And he just told me basically. He said, "I got nothing for you," and I'm like, "Okay," just thinking like that's cool. Yeah, no big deal. I've been dealing with rejection in this industry since I was 23. Here I am, 38. Fuck them. Let's keep going. So he was like, you don't understand. Like all the roles that I was getting from all the roles that he was getting from my look, they were all being changed now. All the ethnicities of these roles were being changed. So sometimes there won't be like an ethnicity that's listed for this character that that a casting agent is that somebody's trying to cast for. So I was like, okay, well, if you could just get me into an audition, even if it says for African American or Asian or Latinx or whatever the hell they call it these days, let me just try to read for it, And I was trying to be as optimistic as possible, and he kind of gave me a pretty good, realistic, cold hard truth talk, which I needed at that time, and that was pretty much it. That was I, I had to take the L on that one, and at the time I saw it as an L. I don't anymore. Now I see it as a win because it was time. I was 38. I had been on my grind for years in this industry. Yes, I saw some success, but not really much in acting. The most success that I saw in the industry was from the modeling side, which, hey, it is what it is. It's fine. I'll take it. But I got to that point where I needed to make a decision. I had to come to the conclusion of where's Hollywood going? Where's Pollywood going? Right? So I was like, what am I doing? I'm about to be 40. I had to start thinking about like, I'm not going to be the that 55-year-old guy that I met when I first moved to LA and I was doing extra work and he was an extra on the set that we shot in Studio City. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be 55 doing extra work. And then on top of that, he's complaining about the free meal that he got. That's not going to be me. I'm sorry. So, it was a sobering moment. I had to wake up. I had to realize that maybe my time in that industry was done. And I'm not saying I'll never act again. I'm not saying I'm completely done with acting because, like I said, acting is my passion and that won't change. But as far as dealing with the system of Hollywood, the business side of Hollywood, I have zero desire. I'm fucking done. I have zero desire to join that fucking rat race and go through that whole process ever again. I don't regret it. I love the experiences that it gave me. I love what it built because it made me who I am. But I will never go back to that again. There was times where I'd drive to an audition and I'd drive up and I'd see this fucking cattle call of just hundreds of dudes just lined up. And I'm like, you want to talk about being intimidated? When I first moved to Hollywood, I'm like, how the hell am I going to make it with all these other guys trying to do the same thing I'm doing? Now, it was a tough road. It wasn't easy by any means, and I found my way. But all good things must come to an end, and it ran its course. So I think that where we're at now as a culture, I think where we're at now as fans of film and the industry, the industry of Hollywood, in my opinion, is dead. They keep on doing things, they keep on casting certain ways and certain actors that just, you're trying to change certain things, certain races of characters, and it does, obviously it's not working. How many times do these films have to flop before we understand that, hey, why don't we just create some new original material? But it seems to me like Hollywood's hell bent on not creating new original material that they used to do all the time and do really well. Now we're at a stage where they just want to recycle. They just want to rinse, recycle, and repeat, and just throw it back out there with a new cast. And then you take a film like Roadhouse with Jake Gyllenhaal, which, had that film been a film in and of itself, like a different name to it, and you weren't trying to take the whole thing from Roadhouse, the Patrick Swayze Roadhouse, the classic, the fucking cult classic that film is, you're trying to do some sort of a kind of a half-assed remake, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Take Point Break. Point Break, this remake, I was never, and I will never waste my time with that film. I'm sure it's a good film on its own. It probably would have been a great film had they just made a completely separate new concept of these guys that are doing whatever they're doing, that are trying to be like Bodie and Johnny Utah. It's just, you don't touch the classics. Point Break is a fucking classic. Okay, 90s cinema is what I grew up on, so I'm very partial to 90s cinema. But 90s cinema has come and gone. We don't go backwards. We only go forward in life. So the films that they're doing today are not those films anymore. The agenda that they push is not the agenda that was back in those days. I mean, you could even argue that there was no really agenda that they were pushing back in the 90s. It was just good films. You could go through the list from 1990 all the way to the late 90s when The Matrix was coming out. I mean, some phenomenal films, some classics. What are the classics of today? That my question is, what are the kids growing up today watching saying like, oh, they're gonna look back when they're 30 and be like, man, Avengers, God, that's a classic. Really, Avengers? I mean, here's how I look at it. Like, Avengers is cool, it's entertaining. Yeah, okay, I got it. Got some jacked out fucking superheroes. That's awesome. It's fun. It's stupid fun. But to consider that film a classic just because it grossed billions of dollars in the box office, to me, doesn't equate. Again, I'm just one person here, but it seems to me the more and more I look at this, the more and more I listen to people, the more and more I talk to people, the more and more I watch the reviews and the returns on these films, or lack thereof, I've come to the conclusion that Hollywood is dead. You got streaming services now that have taken over a lot of this whole thing. TV series like Yellowstone, 1923. These are great, and Taylor Sheridan is phenomenal. He's amazing. He's probably one of my favorites. But nobody goes to the theater that much anymore. I know they're trying to get people to go to the theater, but that's just honestly, it seems to me like that might be kind of a nostalgic, you know, thing that we used to do. And the film industry they're so disconnected, it seems. The higher ups, the executives, the agents, the writers. What the fuck happened? Why are we making such shitty content these days? The films that are being pumped out, and again, it could just be because I'm the old guy now. I'm getting older, and my my taste has changed, or maybe it's just it fucking sucks. That's the conclusion that I've come to, because there are still good writers. Like I said, Taylor Sheridan, the guy is fucking phenomenal. I've never watched anything that he wrote that was not good. So Hollywood is still very capable of making good work, but do they want to? That's the question. It seems to me, if I was a betting man, I would say that Hollywood does not want to make anything good. It seems to me that Hollywood is trying to pander to a certain audience. And also, it seems to me that Hollywood is kind of self destructing. I'd like to not believe that, because there's millions upon millions of dollars on the line here. But it's just, where did we go wrong? And the more and more I study this, the more and more I watch these films, the more and more I read these reviews, I'm at a loss. And I have to come to the conclusion that the death of Hollywood has already happened. Now, can they come back from that? I don't know. I'll have to dig into this a little deeper in another episode, but you know, there comes a time, if you reach a certain caliber of your career, there comes a time where you might get approached by somebody that's in the industry, somebody who's a higher up. Maybe it's an agent, maybe it's an executive, maybe it's a CEO. And if you're playing your cards right, and they think you have a marketable look, persona, and they could build something on you, they might approach you and they might ask you some questions and they might offer you something. But the trade-off might not be worth it for you. And in my experience, the trade-off was not worth it. The things that I was asked to do for a certain amount of money was not going to happen. The things that were proposed to me for a lot of money, I was not going to do. That's it. My soul's not for sale. There's certain things that there's certain things that you have to say no to. The power of no is a magnificent ability to have. Because when you can't be bought, you can't be sold. And I made that decision in this one particular circumstance that I'm referring to. I made that decision that I was never going to let anybody fucking own me. I was never going to let anybody own me. I would never want to be one of these guys that are in Hollywood that has to do and say certain things because you're fucking owned. I would never be that person. I will never be that person. Now, are there people who don't have to do that to get big, to make it, to become the big movie star? Yeah, for sure. For sure. But in my experience, that was the scenario that was the hand that I was dealt. And that was right on the tail end of my tenure in Hollywood and doing this whole thing. And I remember it was just, I couldn't sleep. I remember I went home that night and I was like, I couldn't sleep. I was like, this is real. I was like sitting there thinking like, this is fucking real. So we talk about Harvey Weinstein. We talk about all these weird sexual games and the Eyes Wide Shut, Stanley Kubrick shit. It's no joke. This shit is fucking real. Now, before people would say, oh, it's conspiracy theory, it's all pure coincidence. I beg to differ. I've been to these parties. I've seen this shit. And it is not to be fucked with. These people are fucked up. A lot of these people are fucked up. Again, This was in my journey. My conclusion is this. Is Hollywood dead? Yes. Can Hollywood recover? I don't think so. They've disrespected their audience for far too long now. You can only disrespect a certain side of your audience for so long. You cater to one side, you forget about this whole side on the other end of the spectrum where those are people too. You know, you forget about the hardworking blue collar people that built this country, that maintained this country. The infrastructure of this country is built, maintained, and run by the blue collar, conservative voting, middle America, middle class person that you have totally negated and disrespected. So, what do you think is going to happen here, Chief? These people are just like over you and your bullshit agendas that you push in film. Your DEI narrative, your transgender pushing of this and the gay stuff and the lesbian stuff, like that's whatever. Like I'm just like anybody else. I really don't give a fuck. You do what you do, but don't put it in people's faces. That's kind of the thing. I think that's where everybody kind of finds common ground is do what you do, but just don't fucking force feed it to me. I don't care what you do in your house. It's your house. But don't force feed it to me or especially my kids. I think that's where a lot of people, they draw that line. You start fucking with people's kids, oh boy, you better watch out. So I think that they have dug their own grave. I think the industry of Hollywood has run its course. I think now what we're going to see is more and more independent style films, independent style TV series and such. Will the Hollywood system still be there? Yeah, there's so much money involved that they're probably still going to be trying to hold on for dear life. But will they ever be able to recover? That's the question, and I would say no. So I think the lesson here is understand your audience and understand that not everybody sees everything just how you see it. Just because you see things a certain way doesn't mean that that person next door does. You may not agree, and that's fine. You know, that's the beauty of this. That should be the beauty of this country too. We can agree to disagree, you know, and disrespecting people for a different set of beliefs is never going to be a good way to go about it, especially when you're relying on those people to pay to come see your films. You're relying on those people's money. It makes no sense to me. The power that people can wield with where and how they spend their money is starting to become very apparent. And that is the best form of protest, in my opinion. Don't spend your money on stupid shit. If somebody wants to talk shit about whatever it is that you believe in and it's a product that you used to buy, fuck them. There's plenty of other products you can get. Use your money as your voice. That's the best way to go about this. And I think that that's exactly what the Americans especially have done with Hollywood. They've used their voices with their money. And Hollywood is doing nothing but hurt. I don't think they're ever going to learn. So Hollywood is dead, my friends. And, you know, they had plenty of chances to fix this, but they kept on fucking around. So as the age-old saying goes, you fuck around, you find out.